Oh man, this is huge. So CRONJE, one of the most popular developers on the Fantom ecosystem, who famously left all of crypto a couple of months ago, has made his first appearance publicly, breaking the silence on the truth about Fantom. He covers off who initially created Fantom, what involvement he had, what involvement does he currently have, will he ever come back, and a whole bunch more on a really good podcast episode. Unfortunately, he didn't give the episode to me, but he did give it to Delphi Digital, and we're going to be reacting to some of the best bits in this video. So I'll leave the link in the description to the full 1 hour 20-minute video, which mainly is centered around regulation in crypto and CRONJE's thoughts around that. But in this video, we're specifically going to focus on what he said around Fantom. So sit back, get yourself a cuppa, hit the like button, don't forget to subscribe. If you like my perspectives, consider checking out the course member live streams, ijaz.uk/member. Without further ado, let's get straight across to CRONJE, because there's a lot of insights in this, and let's react to what he says.
This I find fascinating, right? Because if you go check at the GitHub commit history of Go Opera and Go Lachesis, which is the two primary nodes running Fantom, and you go check who was the first primary contributor who built the original network, you're going to see my name. If you go to the original papers that were published by the foundation that describe the consensus mechanism, how it works, how it achieves consensus, how it does pruning, all of those things, you're going to find my name. I am one of the original builders of Fantom. I am one of the original authors of the theoretical papers. So it wasn't really me making a choice to build on Fantom. It's I built Fantom and I really wanted to continue building on it. And I think that is lost.
That's kind of fun. It's kind of weird that I didn't even know that. I think it's lost on a lot of people.
But again, this was before Yearn days. So, and that's actually something I wanted to say originally. But like before Yearn,
That's a really big revelation, guys. So Andre's saying here, he was one of the original builders. He was one of the original architects of the whole Fantom ecosystem as we know it. This is before his days in Yearn Finance, before he was famous doing these other things. That's what he was dabbling in. That's what he was doing. That was his baby. It was his project. And you can see it on the GitHub commits.
I was with Fantom. Before Fantom, I was with Crypto Briefing. I used to do the technology code reviews. I don't know if you remember those. Back in the ICO days when, I'd go into these guys' GitHubs.
You called out a lot of projects.
Yeah. So, that's my background originally, not the Yearn stuff. The Yearn and all of the DeFi stuff, that was hobbyist behavior. Yearn Keeper and Solidly. Fantom wasn't after the fact choice. It's I've always been there, and that's not going to change.
Big statement, guys. If you read between the lines, it's not going to change. He's always been there. It's de facto. He's saying it's almost default. It's not a choice if he's there or not. It's his. You don't just leave your kid, do you? I mean, these are the clues he's giving us here. He's saying he's always been there. And that's not going to change.
That's actually pretty interesting. I didn't know that. Why do you think people don't actually know this in mass? Or maybe they do, but I feel like they don't.
Who looks at research papers?
It just gets
Who
lost
looks at old GitHub commits? like you look at the most prominent vocal people. The thing is, when Fantom really started to get its day in the light, I wasn't a core dev anymore. I wasn't a core researcher. I wasn't involved in the executive team anymore. Like Kong and Quan and Igor and those guys have all taken over, and they're doing a much better job than I can. And its current success is to them, but its origination is to me.
Beautifully said, guys. And I think I couldn't have put it any better in words. But CRONJE says it himself. The origination belongs to him. He built it originally, right? He was the core person in the early days. But since then, the execution of delivering on a project, and we're going to come more into this because he touches upon this a bit more later on, but the execution on a more mature project is being done by Michael Kong and the team. They're doing that, and like in CRONJE's own words, they're doing it better than I could. And even when Fantom started getting its limelight, well before CRONJE left, he wasn't in the limelight, right? He wasn't in the limelight. The credit was going to the team. Very important.
So that's why, you know, like I always find it weird when people are like, oh yeah, but why did you choose Fantom when you could have gone to Avalanche? You know, I also really respect Avalanche's technology. I've said so publicly. I've complimented Snowball since, you know, it first came out. And I remember what was the team that did the first implementation. I think it was Perlin, and like I loved their code. It was absolutely beautiful. So, you know, I've been a long proponent that they're one of the only other real technology players out there other than Fantom. Because the other thing that also gets me, right, and I also think this is partly my fault, but like a lot of people don't actually know that Fantom's consensus is, you know, one of the only two ABFT consensus systems out there. It's only Fantom and Avalanche. And like it doesn't have a longest chain rule. You know, there's no rollbacks or stuff. Like once a transaction has been seen by the majority of the network, that's final. Like there's nothing that can happen there. It's also one of the only chains that doesn't need its history to prove its current set. It can actually do data pruning after every 3 leaves of snapshots. So, you know, it doesn't bloat infinitely. It has beautiful time to finality. It can get to finality in under 900 seconds for a transaction when it's seen by the network. And you know, it's technologically speaking such an amazing technology stack, and yet the common belief system by most people is that it's like a Geth fork or something. Like the
Crazy. Doubling down. I mean, Andre Cronje since has left, right? But he knows that the technology here is what the asset is. And I think that's where, and he touched upon this again in a bit, that is where the asset is. It's in the technology. He knows what it is. The innovation is there. Just like Bitcoin, the innovation is in the code. He knows that that's what's there sitting with Fantom. And he also mentions Avalanche is also using an ABFT network as well. So these are 2 platforms which he's backing to say, look, these are solid technological innovations being built. It's not just a fork, as some people may be saying.
The only Geth that is in there is some libraries that are imported for opcode compatibility for the EVM that runs on top of the consensus. But the whole consensus layer is, you know, natively ground up written, and like we did that over 3-4 years.
Written from scratch by Andre Cronje and the team. They writ it from scratch at the time.
But yeah, like
Andre, I have this theory that you like working on early stage projects, and then once they get big, you hand off to the more operational people.
my value add drops off of a cliff at that point, you know, because like my strength is in the R&D phase, in the experimentation, in the what if, you know, that's.
There's nothing wrong with that. It's.
Yeah. And I want to elaborate on this point, guys. This is a really important point. Now, for those who aren't as experienced, I kind of learned this through the typical entrepreneurial world. You get entrepreneurs who are very, very good at certain phases. So, for example, an entrepreneur who can take a company from scratch to $1 million, right? That's one type of entrepreneur. Normally, they specialize in that. They can get it to $1 to $5 million, right? It's very different to the type of leader you need to take a company from $5 million to $50 million. And that's very different to the company you'll need to take you from 50 to $100 million and $500 million, right? Very different CEOs / entrepreneurs are needed in those phases. And what Andre Cronje is admitting here is I'm needed in the research and development phase. That's where I'm good. When there's no idea, when it's very early, when it's scrappy, when it needs, you know, innovation, that's where I'm good. But when a project gets a little bit more mature, when it gets larger and has to handle different types of issues, that's not where he thrives. And you could see that not just from a value point of view. He said that himself. My value falls off a cliff. So he's saying that from, let's say, a technical perspective or his value to the team, but also from an emotional perspective as well. And he touches upon this in a bit. That we know it. Andre Cronje struggled with some of the toxicity in the crypto space. He was getting blamed a lot for a lot of the things going wrong with any project. And people will, for whatever reason, were using him as the figurehead and blaming him for those issues, right? Now, that takes a different type of leader to be able to take that stress from a big company, right? Michael Kong does a far better job at being that CEO figure than somebody like Andre Cronje. He just wants to be in the code. He just loves the code. He loves the innovation. And that's where his value is. He just wants to start up projects. There's a lot of entrepreneurs out there in the outside of the crypto space that are the same. And it's the exact same for the crypto space. These are unique minds, unique talents. Not everybody is an Elon Musk, where not only can they have come up with crazy ideas, but also execute on them to billion-dollar companies, right? That's a very unique blend. The majority either like genius minds that just want to do the fun things and they can't execute on the company. Another example is Apple with Steve Jobs and Wozniak. Wozniak was the brainchild, right? But he couldn't execute on running a business. That's where Steve Jobs came into it. And it sounds like that's the dynamic you were hearing here with Andre Cronje.
Two different phases of a project, multiple different phases, and obviously people are good at bad at different areas of it. There's nothing wrong with that. But to your point, I think there is a point culturally because people expect the person who created something to also be the person who sticks around forever when it's not really the case. It's different skill sets.
It is a different skill set. And like, especially in crypto, the sort of immutability around tokenomics makes it difficult to put multiple projects under the same banner / umbrella / whatever you want to call it. Because once those tokenomics are set and they're defined for protocol A, and you want to develop protocol B, you can't. You know, like using the Tesla example from earlier, you can't pivot from electric vehicles to batteries to AI once you've set the tokenomics in motion for the electric vehicle. So, you know, it's kind of designed to be built and abandoned. And I mean, if you want to do a new version, and sure you can, you do a V2, you do a V3.
Very good point. Very good point. So in a traditional company, you can pivot a company. This is what Andre Cronje is saying. You can create a company, and a couple of years in, if you want to change your mind or you have a different interest or you see the market going a different way, you can pivot the company and change it. He's saying with crypto, once you've kind of set something like Bitcoin and you've put it into, you know, the code and the Genesis code and you've launched it, there's not much you can do, right? Your work is done pre-launch in the coding. And that's what Andre Cronje is saying. He's saying my work is done pre-coding. And if you listen to the full interview, he talks about the work he's done on Solidly. And he's saying, I did my best work in Solidly, right? I put the code in, and once I launched it, it doesn't matter whether I stayed for 6 months, a year, or whatever. People think I dumped the project. That's not the case. The best work I done was done before I launched. And when it launched, it's done. Nothing more to do. I wasn't going to add anything. Everything I know or could have done is in that product. And you can't reverse engineer it or change it afterwards. Very important point he's making here.
You do a V4, but you're not changing the original thing. But the only way you can do that is if you have some leeway in tokenomics. And, you know, we often see that with hey, we're releasing V2, but to release V2, we need to do a token migration from V1 because we now need extra tokens to be able to do this, blah, blah, blah. So it's designed to kind of be counterintuitive towards doing multiple things under the same banner. And that just doesn't fit with me, you know, because like the products I'm busy now don't fit under Yearn at all. And just like Keeper, I couldn't do under Yearn. I actually tried to figure out how to do it, but like it needed its own tokenomic ecosystem to be able to pay for the gas fees so that the keepers could actually, you know, use liquidity instead of, so they can use CapEx instead of OpEx to actually run their businesses. And then, you know, same thing with Solidly. Like these, I wish I could do them all under one, but to do that, I would need kind of open-ended minting rights to be able to say, hey, okay, but the new project needs these things, so we're now going to add that in. But like, once you leave that up to a DAO, that's just not going to happen.
I don't foresee any way that happens ever. I mean, unless it's some studio or accelerator type model, but I mean, even then it's tough. I mean, well, the other thing though worth discussing is not many founders are like you, right? A lot of founders will stay with the same project for long periods of time. They don't have all these ideas that they want to execute on, right? For you, these are very different ideas that are very differentiated. Like you can't build that under one token. It wouldn't make any sense. You'd have to dilute the hell out of it, take the risk. Token holders wouldn't be okay with that.
It's unfair to
incentives. Them. Yeah. And the token has different use cases for different projects within. Yeah, that gets really murky really quickly.
So that's why, you know, like that's why I've kind of chosen the path and done it the way I've done it. But at the same time, that's also been my biggest criticism, you know, is the fact that I'm the guy that launches it and then walks away. When, you know, what I am able to offer, I've offered to the best of my abilities, and there's not going to be much more after the fact that you can get out of me.
It's exactly what we're saying, guys. He launches it, he gives it his all to the project, and once he's done, there's not much more he can give. So a lot of people are saying, oh, Fantom is ruined now. No, he created it long ago. And then since then, he was well out of the depths. Michael Kong and the team were running it, and like he said, they were running it in a very good manner, better than he could. That's the words he's using. And he's just needed for some of the strategic input. And he comes on to say it.
Do you think it would be different if the framing was different? Like, what if you ran a studio and the like the mandate was literally to launch tons of new projects with all of your ideas and to have teams around it. If that was the narrative around it, I feel like it might be accepted better than, you know, quote, jumping project to project.
No,
but
I agree with you 100%. Sure. But, you know, in hindsight, I was a naive dev with a Twitter account that got too popular too quickly, that just liked launching stuff, you know, like I never thought of it like this. Like, to me, it was, hey, here's a cool idea, let's do it.
So, I mean, one of the most recent things with Fantom was Solidly, right? Like it's a new AMM using, you know, Fantom's tech. You were going to do an airdrop to like the top 20, you know, DeFi projects on Fantom. TVL went through the roof for Fantom, I think, billions. And then a couple days later, you know, I don't know if you decided to quit or leave, but there's definitely a break-off point there.
But now again,
what was the situation
since day one, I made it very clear this is an immutable, finalized primitive. You know, there's nothing I can do even if I want to. There's no change, there's no updates, there's no anything. But like, and I thought I had communicated that in my writing, but very clearly I didn't. So, you know.
Again, just coming to that fact, you know, people were saying, oh, is this a rug pull? That was the question that was being asked, right? Because it seems so odd. He launched this project and then he disappears. Like, everybody's getting hyped about this project. The project was focused around his name, and then suddenly he leaves. But like he's saying, he never thought about it like that. He never thought about, you know, it being an ongoing concern. And maybe, like he said, he's not communicated that well. I agree. I don't think he has communicated that well. It felt very odd from the whole community that he just upped and left at that moment when total value locked was going through the roof. If he made it very clear, this is a once and done, once I've set it up, I'm done, no involvement, here's the team, handing it over, see you later, that's far better, right? It's to do with how that communication, how that process went. Could have just been a little slicker, could have been a little tighter to avoid some of the kind of disgruntled feelings in the community.
So since the day I deployed it on Fantom, I was done with it. Like, there was nothing I could do anymore. 2 weeks later, the emissions would start, but like, it didn't need interaction from me. It didn't need any kickoff. There was nothing I needed to do further. So I was already done with it, like about a month before everyone thought I had actually left it. The only really thing that happened is like, I left my Twitter and stuff just because like I couldn't take the I don't want to say toxicity, just the really ridiculously mean things some people are willing to tell another human being, that honestly sometimes I wonder how are they willing to even utter that phrase out of their like consciousness. But you know, and like that stuff was eating away at me, man. So I was just like, I'm done with that stuff. But I think it all,
and that's fair enough if that's why you wanted to leave social. But again, just coming back to kind of how it was addressed, that's where the bitter feeling was, right? It could have easily been like, look, my best work is done. It's still some of the best work I've ever done. This is the best technology I've ever written. I gave it my all. There's nothing more I can add to the project. Here's the team I'm going to hand over to. Don't worry about it. I'm going off social media. It doesn't make any difference. I'm still strategically involved. You know, that would have been perfect. Just to disappear that day. I know it was emotional at the time for him, and maybe just, you know, one of those impulsive moves to just turn off your Twitter and disappear out of crypto. But it's going to have an impact when you got a project that's total value locked, you know, went up to $5 billion very quickly.
Coincided very badly, and like, if I can redo it, I definitely would redo the sequence of events, because you know, in people's minds, they saw, oh, the token just went live, right? And like, to most people, when the token's live, the protocol's live, not the fact that it was actually, you know, 2 weeks earlier that it went live, but there was no token back then, so then no one cares. Then I disappear off of Twitter, and you know, like I've Solidly was supposed to be my capstone, you know, that is like just a immutable primitive with a bunch of gorgeous tech in it, like that the V NFTs, the little distribution mechanic, how it ties into voting, and that curve, you know, that curve was really bloody difficult to write. Like that was mathematics that when I started tackling it was beyond my skills, and it's one of the things I'm actually really bloody proud of. And yeah, I think it was just a sequence of events of how it happened that I would definitely change, but I wouldn't change the events, if that makes sense. It's just the timing of them that happened wrong and caused people to respond the way they did.
Again, though, do you think it's more of a, like, on the presentation side? Like, instead of, hey, I'm leaving, on one side. On the other side, you have, hey guys, this is immutable. It's meant to last 1,000 years. You don't need me. This runs autonomously. Like, I just feel like it may be also in the presentation a bit.
100% willing to accept that. Like I've said, I often, what I think I write and what people read, I have realized are two very different things. Now, I 100% accept my shortcomings there, and I don't really know how to address it. You know, it's not like I'm going to get a personal PR agent or something, like in my own personal capacity. You know, it's like.
No. The reason I bring it up is it's just sad because like you went to such lengths to develop something even beyond your own knowledge, right? Like you've just described with amazing tech. And the only thing people are talking about is Andre left a couple of days later.
I share that.
Which sucks.
I share that. but like it's the same with people now, you know, acting like Fantom's bombing because I'm not involved. Meanwhile, it's probably been a year and a half since I actually contributed to the tech and stuff. Like I'll still advise the team every so often, and that hasn't stopped. I'm still doing that, but.
There you go, guys. Again, so he's still doing it. So he's not been involved for a year and a half on the actual dev side, which we know the Fantom Foundation have made that clear. We had Simone Pomposi clarify that here on this channel in our interview, which I'll link up as well somewhere for you guys to go watch. But that's been the case, right? We know that, but he's still strategically involved. And I think that's what's important. So in essence, for Fantom, nothing has changed. And the fact that the price has moved and total value locked has fallen off, like it's all a bunch of nothing burger. It's all an overreaction. And we know the tech is still beautiful. Look how Andre Cronje is addressing that. It's still one of the best tech pieces out there. And all of this is just an overreaction to Andre Cronje pretty much not being public and taking his Twitter off. He's still probably having the exact same conversations on a strategic level with Michael Kong. Nothing's changed.
You know, like I haven't actively been involved since basically Yearn days.
Well, Andre, I think it goes back to how you opened with Elon Musk and Tesla and SpaceX, right? People don't care about the data. They don't care about the tech. They want to know where you are, right? They want to know where Elon is. They want easy stuff that they could rally around and share, right? They don't care how many, I mean, I don't know Fantom's transaction throughput offhand, just like I don't know how many cars Tesla produced last year, but I know I want to back
360,000.
Right? Like, there we go.
Not the throughput, the cars. Throughput's much higher.
Yeah. Oh, gotcha. Yeah. He's pushing out cars, man. He is something else there. I guess you're not a huge Elon fan, I'm guessing.
I have no issues with the dude. I have issues with what people make / fantasize / kind of the same stuff that happened with me. Like it's the story that gets created.
Like he's Iron Man?
He'll probably one day build the Iron Man suit. I hope so. He just needs to solve energy first. But like, you know, there's story and then there's reality. And the story is a lot more lavish than reality 99% of the time. And that's where some of my frustration there comes in. It's the disconnect between the narrative versus the reality.
Do you see?
Oh man, so much to digest there, guys. We could listen to that to the end. Go watch the full podcast. Link will be in the description. But in terms of Fantom, we've got a lot of data there. We've heard a lot from Andre Cronje. Some of the best tech he's ever built. He built it from the origination. He's the daddy of Fantom, right? He built it. But that's where his value starts and ends. He's made that very clear. Whether it's Solidly, whether it's Yearn, whether it's Keeper, he does his work in the incarnation of a project, in the creative R&D innovative stage. And once he launched it, there's not much more he can add. And he was not involved for the next year and a half. He's not been involved in any development on Fantom. He said himself, Michael Kong and the team are running the project better than he could because he's not somebody that can execute on a larger project. He can create beautiful code, best technology, and then you just have to let it run. He also addressed the whole Solidly issue, saying it's still some of the most beautiful code he's written. There's nothing more he could have added to it. And there's nothing, if he was there today, it wouldn't make any difference. Nothing has changed. It's still the beautiful tech innovation. And I think this kind of summarizes the theme of what's on Andre's head. And you can feel that in his reticence in when he's speaking. He's lamenting the fact that people are kind of putting individuals on a pedestal instead of looking at the technology, because in crypto, the technology, what's in the code, it doesn't matter who Satoshi Nakamoto is, does it? Why are people wasting their time thinking about who this figurehead is? The whole beauty around Bitcoin and why it started was that Satoshi kept himself anonymous, because that way people will focus on the code. They'll focus on the innovation. What makes it unique? What is the technology behind this? And that is the beauty of it. And it's the same for all these cryptos. And he mentioned Avalanche and Fantom as being two of the most superior pieces of technology using ABFT, right? This is huge. This is coming from one of the greatest minds out there in the DeFi space. He knows what's going on there. He knows the limitations of other platforms. And he's mentioning these two as the standout ones, right? And he mentions that the team continue to do a fantastic job. He mentions that he also, he'll never say never in terms of leaving. You can watch the full podcast. He says he'll never say never in terms of leaving. But right now, he doesn't see himself coming back. He also mentions that the environment would have to be better regulated for him to start bringing in some of these new projects. He's already working on exciting projects and has ideas around things and projects he could introduce if and when crypto becomes more regulated in the future. In other words, he doesn't seem interested coming back into the crypto badlands, and that was the theme of this podcast. But from a Fantom perspective, all positive news, all things which we knew, but it's good to finally hear that from Andre Cronje himself, breaking the silence to say, look, the technology is great. I was never doing anything. It made no difference. I just went off of Twitter. I'm still speaking to the CEO, and I still give strategic input exactly like I was, before the price fell and before Total Value Lock started leaking. So we all know this is an overreaction, and this gives us further conviction to go and buy the dip on a day when Fantom is sitting at 97 cents. If I buy any more dip, I won't have any bread to eat later on. But that's how it goes. Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed this video. Sorry this one dragged on a little bit more, but I wanted you to hear it verbatim from Andre Cronje as opposed to me cutting it up into small bits and then speaking over the top of it. Hope you enjoyed this video as always. Smash up the like and subscribe as always. If you like my perspective, consider checking out the links below. Ijaz.uk/member will allow you to become a member of our course member live streams where we talk about tokenomics, we talk about macroeconomics, we talk about all kinds of things to help you grow your portfolio in real time with access to me when you need it. As always, smash up the likes and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.